She booked a midnight fitting. His measurements did match our vows. I make clothes for people who want their bodies to keep a secret. The truth of a person lives where fabric meets skin, at the soft notch above the sternum where a lapel wants to rest, at the small of the back where a dress decides whether to be honest. My tape, worn to silk from 1,000 wrists, has learned the etiquette of intimacy. Ask close questions, take exact answers, leave no mark except confidence. Pins in the mouth, chalk behind the ear, scissors that sing when they're sure this is my church. I am a tailor, and I've promised more than hymns in this room. I met Alina because she walked into my atelier and told my suits to behave. She was doing the launch for a champagne label that wanted everyone to pretend bubbles were a personality. She needed one tuxedo with opinions for the poster boy, and 4 with shoulders that listened for the men whose job was to stand near him and be paid to agree. She wore a cream blouse that didn't apologize for the heat, a red mouth that knew its power, and a scent like a question you answer twice. "This jacket is too honest," she said, testing the model's lapel with 2 fingers. "People buy mystery." "I sew mystery," I told her, "and truth, same stitches, different angles." She looked at me the way a woman tastes a word before she agrees to learn it. When I measured her for fun, neck to shoulder, shoulder to bust point, bust to waist, she stood still with a confidence that felt like being trusted. When my tape slid around her ribs, her breath met mine and held there steady, an elevator between floors. Later, after posters, after champagne, after the kind of kiss that makes a person decide to rearrange a life, she moved into my apartment above the shop and learned the sound of thread pulling through canvas in the dark. We made a habit of talking in the language my work taught me. "Stand easy," I'd say when she was nervous. "Don't lock your knees," she'd say when I worked too long. Some nights she'd sit on the cutting table in my shirt, legs crossed, hair up, and watch me hand-pat a lapel while Miles Davis argued gently with himself in the corner. "I like the way you touch things," she told me once, smiling with the side of her mouth that promised mischief. "Like every seam deserves to be believed." Business stayed good, love got real. We were not a loud couple. We had a private luxury, knowing where the other's zipper started. Alina did PR for a living. Desire was her day job's currency and our night job's grammar. We were careful with it. We were good. The first crease came as a scent, not a sentence. Alina came home from a pitch smelling faintly of bergamot and metal and something else, something clean and expensive, smoke without the sin. She put her key on the dish and missed. That was new. Alina never missed. She smiled, apologized to the air, and wrapped her arms around me with that generous press of chest that's half hello, half claim. I set my hands on her waist and felt a tremor like a note tuned too sharp. "What's the campaign?" I asked against her hair. "A private label," she said. "A new client, you don't know him." The key on the dish was new too, brushed brass, cut recently, attached to a leather fob stamped with initials that weren't hers or mine. She caught me looking and kissed me in the way women do when they want the room to think nothing is interesting. "Venue key," she said, breezy as a scarf. "For a penthouse we're using, it's temporary." Temporary things in this city are just permanent things pretending to be polite. The booking email arrived 2 days later with the confident brevity of money. "Private fitting for a VIP. Midnight if you please. 2 looks, black tie and off-duty danger. Discretion essential." It came from Alina's company address, signed by her assistant, but I recognized her sentence rhythm. Even her interns borrowed her punctuation. Venue. A glass box above an old bank, a place where ice cubes felt shy. "Midnight?" I asked, handing her the printout at breakfast. "His schedule," she said, buttering toast like it had broken a promise. "He's filming. It'll take an hour. You love dramatic lighting." "What's he called?" She spread more butter than necessary. "Dorian Vale," she said finally, and my tape measure in the cup by the sink leaned an inch toward the window as if it wanted air. I'd seen Dorian on billboards wearing watches that made time look like a hobby. A fitness entrepreneur with a body that had to be expensive to maintain. He had a talent for making cameras think he was thinking about you. Men wanted to pay to be his friend. Women wanted to buy first-row seats to his hunger. I'd tailored for worse, for better, for men who said please and men who thought their last name was permission. What made me fold the email and tuck it under the sugar jar wasn't his face. It was the hour and the key on our dish. Midnight needs witnesses. I could have said no. I could have sent my second. Instead, I polished my shears and packed my portable kit like a man who believed in evidence. The penthouse was made for photos of the sky pretending to own us. The concierge sent me up in a lift that took its time so I'd arrive at the right mood. Inside, marble that didn't apologize, a bar that had been told to sparkle, a piano that thought highly of itself. A rack waited by the window with a selection Alina had pulled from my shop that afternoon. It was a good pull leather jacket with a collar that knew how to speak softly, midnight tuxedo with satin facings that refused to shout. 2 garment bags I hadn't packed hung at the end. Something from a brand that buys its courage and another from a designer who hates seams. Alina was there, already in motion. She wore a black slip dress that behaved like water with an agenda. Her hair was pinned up with a comb I recognized. I'd bought it for her in a stall that smelled like rose jam because she said she liked the way it punished light. She held a clipboard she didn't need. When she saw me, she came close like a secret. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm on time," I said. "We doing this?" Her hand found my wrist for a second, took my pulse like a nurse and a thief, and let go. "We're doing this," she said. Dorian arrived in a sweatshirt that cost more than my first month's rent and sunglasses that wanted to be forgiven. Up close he was smaller than his photos and also larger. Fame does that. It warps measurement. He shook my hand and then forgot about me like he just handed his car to a valet. "Let's make danger," he told Alina. It was a ridiculous sentence. She laughed exactly enough. We started with the tux. In the fitting mirror, he watched his own mouth the way actors do when they're also audiences. I looped the tape under his arms and around his chest, reading numbers I already knew from the internet plus the inch men like him stole from truth. My fingers brushed the side of his torso the way they must. He shivered performatively as if even measurement were foreplay. I pinned the trousers and pretended the skin I could see at the waistband wasn't younger than my patience. Alina stood an arm's length away, advising quietly. Her voice had that low warmth she gives to clients she wants to manage and men she likes to believe she's undecided about. "Shoulders," I asked her without looking up. "Let the jacket hold him," she said. "He likes to be carried." He changed behind a screen and came out in the leather. It framed him like a rumor. At Alina's request, I opened a seam near the back of the collar and hand-set a strip of silk so it wouldn't bruise his neck. I am generous even when I don't want to be. When I reached up to feel the fall of the shoulder, my knuckle brushed his jaw. He smiled at me the way men smile at waiters who know their order by heart. Alina watched my hand. I watched her watch. We broke for water. The room smelled of cologne and new leather and the expensive fatigue of midnight. Dorian leaned on the piano and took selfies with his own hunger. Alina came to the garment rack and tidied my tidy, her fingers sure, her mouth neutral like a woman walking a dog that isn't hers. "Tell me the truth," I said softly. Tailors learn to pitch sentences to the inch. She didn't pretend to misunderstand. "We've been working late," she said. "He's loud about what he wants. It's flattering." "Do you want him?" She exhaled and looked at her bare shoulder like something had been written there in chalk. I want how he makes the room look when he walks in, she said. I want the first 10 seconds. And the rest. She lifted the edge of my jacket and let it fall. I want the rest with you, she said, and I found that I believed her and also that belief had a hole in it just big enough for trouble. Last look, Dorian announced, pulling the tuxedo back on. He stood in front of the mirror and posed for his own future. Pocket square, Alina said, something with a grin. I folded a square of white lawn into a rose that didn't apologize for being obvious. As I slid it into his breast pocket, I pressed something else down behind it, a card I'd stitched earlier into a tiny canvas envelope, thread the color of midnight, my initials at the corner. The front said, "Thank you for trusting me." The back said, in my neat tailor's hand, "This suit was cut by Alina's husband." It wasn't angry, it was measured. "Take one last look," I told him, stepping back. "Lift the lapel, make sure you like where it sits." He did as instructed, of course he did. He was a man who obeyed mirrors. He pinched the flower and felt the card tip. He drew it out with 2 fingers, casual, like a magician who already believes in applause. He read the front, smirked, flipped it over. The smirk died so fast the room got colder. "Cute," he said, a word people choose when they're not allowed another one. He looked at Alina. She looked at me. Alina didn't flush. She's better than that. She set down her clipboard with the kind of care that means a thing has stopped pretending to be itself. "Dorian," she said, and her tone would have stopped a dog sprinting toward a street, "we'll get the tux delivered tomorrow. You can go." "I have You can go," she repeated, in the voice she uses when a client thinks his name is furniture. He looked at the door like it owed him money, then looked back at me with a hostility that was almost admiration. He took the jacket off, hung it carefully because men like him perform respect when it might have an audience, and left in his sweatshirt and his sunglasses and the scent of a man who is used to rooms wanting him and doesn't know what to do when one doesn't. Silence isn't a vacuum, it's a garment without seams. The city pressed its face to the window and watched. I cleaned up the way I always do, basting thread into a little nest on my thumb, pins back into the tomato, tape coiled like a sleeping snake. Alina stood by the piano and touched one key like a girl proving she'd learned a piece. She didn't cry. I would have believed her less if she had. "You could have shouted," she said. "I'm a tailor," I said. "I prefer precision." "I kissed him twice," she said, "because when you respect someone you count. Once because I forgot my own name, and once to see if it would make me forget yours. It didn't." "That's a cruel compliment," I said, and surprised myself by not hating her for it. "I wanted the first 10 seconds," she went on, looking at her reflection rather than me. "The way a door opens when a man like that decides he's arrived. Do you know what I do for a living? I open doors for other people. Sometimes I wanted one to open for me without me touching it." "I sew doors," I said. "I can set them where you want, but I won't be the floor." She smiled small. "God, I love how you talk." We didn't touch. That felt right. Midnight was wearing off. Truth was coming back into fashion. We rode the lift down like strangers who had shared a rescue. Outside, the city redistributed its light. We split for a while. Not dramatically. No boxes on the curb, no speeches delivered to furniture. Alina stayed with her sister to reset the app, as she put it. I made suits for men who said they wanted to be better men, and for women who knew exactly what they were about. I went running at dawn past the river where the water carries other people's glitter to the sea. I slept with my phone face down and my shears under the bed for no good reason. Weeks later, she came by the shop with a bag of pastries, and a face that had argued with itself and come to a truce. We ate standing up. She looked at the canvas chess pieces on my wall like a tourist sees a foreign alphabet, impressed by its inevitability. I told him no, she said, simple as chalk. Not just him. The 10 seconds, I told myself I don't get them if I want the rest. You don't get them in the same room, I said, but we can steal them sometimes. Show me how, she said. So I did in my way. I cut her a dress in smoke blue silk that draped like a secret told to a friend. I fit it with the patience I give to things I want to last. When I took her shoulder measurement, my fingers asked permission out of habit. Her skin answered yes without making it my fault. I lifted the zipper and stopped at the point where the back curves into future, that intimate pause where you realize a body is about to become a person again. In the mirror, she met my eyes and did not look away. YouTube would fine us if we keep going, she said, smiling with her mouth and not her publicity. We can be decent, I said. We've practiced. We practiced. We set a rule that sounded silly until it worked. When we wanted the first 10 seconds, we made them. A doorbell rung for no reason, lights low, a kiss that starts as a joke and ends as a plan. No theater, just a little choreography. We didn't perform forgiveness. We tailored it, basted, tried it on, took it in where it pucked, let it out where it pinched. We kept the seams soft at the belly. That part of a love story needs the room to breathe. I still make clothes for people who hire me to guard their appetites. My tape still asks the questions it knows how to ask. Sometimes a man in my mirror will square his shoulders and try to make the jacket take the blame for his life. I pin him back into himself and send him into the world looking better than he deserves. Sometimes Elena will text me a photo from an elevator, her ankle against the toe of her shoe, the hem of the blue silk like a tide, and I will find her key on our dish and remember how a door sounds when it opens for both of us. Bespoke means spoken for. I thought it meant the garment. Turns out it means me. And if I do my work right, no one outside needs to know where the stitches are.